First oral question, Baroness Taylor of Stevenage.
I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
As a temporary measure, councils were able to keep 100% of the right to buy receipts from sales in 2022-23 and indeed 2023-24. As councils have 5 years to spend these receipts, we are continuing to track the impact of allowing authorities to retain the 100% of right to buy. As previously announced, the cap on acquisitions funded through right to buy receipts is at 50% until 2025-26 to enable councils to do more acquisitions. The Government is working with councils to support their supply and delivery plans, and we are keeping the right to buy receipt flexibilities under review.
My Lords, does my noble friend...
My Lords,
it's the front bench turn.
With 3.8 million people on council housing waiting lists, some having waited nearly 2 decades, and with the economic case for social housing comprehensively demonstrated in the recent study by the National Housing Federation and Shelter, showing that building 90,000 social homes would add 51 billion to the economy, the need for delivery of more social homes gets more urgent by the day. Since the Right to Buy programme started in 1980, there's been a reduction in the number of social homes by 1.5 million. 40% of those homes are now let privately, and councils have no choice but to use them as expensive temporary accommodation for homeless families. And that's just pushed the housing benefit up since 1991 from 9 billion to 29.6 billion. Councils should be able to use the proceeds from Right to Buy to deliver like-for-like replacement. But with councils able to receive 100,000 of discount, that is difficult enough. Taking away the ability to retain 100% is another blow. Does the Minister not consider this is an economically illiterate move, depriving people of the homes they need and driving the benefit bill ever upwards?
I would like to draw the House's attention to the fact that the right to buy receipt is only one very small portion of the entire receipts that are available in order to actually deliver affordable housing. And indeed, the 11.5 billion Affordable Homes programme is delivering thousands of affordable homes, including, since 2010, 696,000 new affordable homes, including over 172,600 homes available for social rent.
My Lords, I apologise to the noble lady in my enthusiasm, but I just could not believe the barefaced cheek of asking this question. There would have been no receipts from the sale of council houses if the party opposite had had their way. It was a Conservative government who brought in the right to buy, and it was a Conservative government that enabled people like the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party to buy their council homes.
I agree with my noble friend's comments, and indeed we are genuinely committed to supporting home ownership, and especially for first-time buyers, no matter how they get on our housing ladder.
Surely the point is that the Labour Party, the Labour government, created this the right to buy, and then the Conservative, they created it. All the work was done under the Labour government, and then it was implemented by the Tories, but they cut it in half and didn't allow the replacement of social housing, meaning that we have the present crisis that we have.
I'm afraid that is not my understanding of what has happened historically, and I understand there are some members of this House who may have been involved in actually setting up the original scheme.
The House of my register of interest, and can we go back to the issue of the right to buy? In the last year, there were 10,896 homes sold through right to buy in England, and there were only 3,447 houses that replaced them, a net loss of 7,449 in 2022-2023. Could the Minister explain how she would explain that to a family stuck in temporary accommodation, which is gradually becoming permanent?
I would say to my noble lords, I don't recognise those figures. The figures I have in front of me are that in 2022-23, local authorities reported 10,896 eligible sales, and in terms which were very similar to sales in 21-22, and they delivered 8,900 homes that same year. And overall, there was a net increase of 4,600 affordable homes in that year.
Hasn't the now overreaching transfer of housing from public to private sector landlords led to an explosion in rents, costing billions in increased housing benefit? And why should housing authorities be forced to pay for problems created by this strategy when there's talk of losing a proportion of the capital receipts they desperately need to help fund housing for the homeless, a problem created by the government? It seems to me the only beneficiaries are to be private landlords and the government's PSBR, whilst the losers are the poorest in society.
So I will return to the statistics that we have increased the number of affordable homes by 482,000 of them during the period since 2010. That means there are more houses for people to actually rent at an affordable rent. We also acknowledge that the rent agreements with regards to the increases, particularly for social housing over the last year, whilst inflation was running high, have actually had an impact on the housing associations. But we are working very closely with them to make sure that they actually have the right to increase their rents at an acceptable level, whilst the tenants themselves are not having to struggle with the high cost of living.
My Lords, as one of the housing ministers in the 1979 Parliament, could I say to Lord Bird that I don't recall the right to buy legislation being in my briefing pack when I took office. But returning to the original question, I agree we need many more affordable homes, but has my noble friend seen a report by the House Builders Federation that 13,000 sites for affordable homes have been earmarked as a condition for market sales on the rest of the site, but no housing associations or local authorities have come forward to claim those sites? Can my noble friend find a solution?
I thank my noble friend for that question, and indeed we've been monitoring this for some time, and therefore all measures to increase the rate of house building for the provision of affordable homes is being considered, including the preferential borrowing rate for councils' house building from the Public Works Loan Board, which has been extended to June 2025. Indeed, that 100% temporary measure of the right to buy receipts for the last couple of years was to increase that capital buffer to allow this speeding up of house building and acquisition in this sector. And the abolition, of course, of the housing revenue asset borrowing cap also helps. Alongside that 11.5 billion affordable homes programme, we believe the local authorities and housing associations are both being supported to maximise delivery at pace, and we strongly urge them to utilise the flexibility to build these new homes.
Whatever the data that we're bandying around here, there's no doubt that right to buy and demolitions mean that we're actually losing social housing every year. As has already been said, large numbers of households are now forced to live in expensive and insecure homes in the private rented sector due to the lack of social homes. So what plans does the government have, recognising the point she's making, to further increase the supply of social housing to prevent right to buy eating into this crucial asset?
So I will return to the fact that the actual main programme that we have is the Affordable Homes programme, which is 11.5 billion, of which a large amount of that has actually been allocated for social and affordable housing. So when we actually look at the numbers on that, the right to buy and the local authorities' delivery through that mechanism represents 14% of the overall affordable housing delivery. It is, however, the highest recorded number of local authority completions in a decade. So therefore it is making progress. But the reality is that the rest of that budget is actually being spent in other ways and being delivered as we speak.
My Lord, further to referring to affordable housing, whereas my noble friend is talking about social housing.
Absolutely.
And they're absolutely not the same thing. And in many areas, affordable housing is anything but affordable.
Absolutely. Quite right, Ross. Thank you.
I would like to remind the House of the statistic I gave to an earlier question, is that of those homes, 172,600 of them since 2010 are for social rent.
My Lord, further to the question from my noble friend Lord Young of Cookham, perhaps my noble friend the Minister hasn't quite grasped the root of the problem, which is that we're dealing here particularly with small and medium-sized house builders who, when they generate social housing to accompany their private sector developments, that social housing is frequently comes in penny packets, isolated, a house here or whatever, one house on a site and so on. And there are 13,000 of these now waiting to be built, but the housing associations are not interested in them because they're simply not interesting to housing associations. They're too difficult to manage. And it's unlocking that logjam that I think my noble friend was asking my other noble friend on the front bench to address herself to.
So indeed, this is where a local authority could step in to deliver more replacement homes in the current economic climate. The councils are able to continue to deliver 50% of their right to buy replacement homes as acquisitions each year until 2025, with a focus on the purchasing of new homes. So it should actually help both small and medium-sized and large house builders.
Second oral question, Baroness Northover.
I beg leave to put